agreement establish very clearly that domestic workers are workers and that they are entitled to minimum legal protection on equal footing with all other categories of workers.
Good afternoon. Welcome to today's event, the International Domestic Workers Day 2013. Why is Home holding the event today? That is because we want to remember with great jubilation the adoption of ILO C-189 in Geneva by the United Nations. Why is this international convention so important to domestic workers? For too long, really too long, that domestic workers all over the world are treated like the modern day slaves of the 21st century. We really feel, Home really feels and takes the position that domestic workers are workers and therefore they should be protected under the law by national labor legislation. Like in Singapore, the domestic workers are still discriminated and are not covered by the Employment Act of Singapore. They are not entitled and do not have the rights to claim under the Employment Act. They do not have the days off until this year. They do not have public holidays. They do not have minimum wages. They do not have minimum working hours and claims for overtime and other extra time of duties and wages for their work. This to me is something which has become the position that we are fighting for, that domestic workers should be recognized as workers and not just as maids or the modern day slaves of Singapore. In 2010, on this journey, I was in Geneva with Cute from Home Roses, and we were there to witness the beginning of the proceedings to have the Domestic Workers Convention adopted by member states of the world. And I had a wonderful experience there in the United Nations office in Geneva to witness how many member country states and the labor unions supported this convention. And we were there as an NGO to observe the proceedings, and I was really happy to be with fellow NGOs to say to the world, domestic workers are workers. We must have a convention for domestic workers and recognize their rights under the laws, international laws and international standards of workers. The historic victory did not end in 2010. The next proceedings for the final adoption of C-189 was in 2011, when Home was represented by my fellow colleague Margaret Sisi and our volunteers Rista from Home Kartini and Gilda from Home Nightingale. The three of them were there to say to the world, Home supports C-189.
In August, the Philippines National Senate ratified the ILO's Convention 189 on domestic workers. Now, domestic workers there have the legal protection of the law in terms of pay, Social Security, and protection against abuse, harassment, and violence.
The domestic workers should be protected under the laws, not just here in the Philippines, but throughout the world.
The Philippines' ratification means the convention will come into force internationally within the year, making domestic workers eligible for the same protections that other workers enjoy.
I salute the Philippines today on the celebration of the Independence Day, 150th birthday of Philippines, to take the lead to ratify the ILO Domestic Worker Convention. I was there in Manila to be in Congress, to be in the Senate, to see how the Domestic Workers Convention was finally ratified by President Aquino. When I was there, I joined with other NGOs calling over television broadcasts for the ratification of the ILO Domestic Worker Convention by the Philippines government. And there, I saw the victory of all the domestic workers in the Philippines when it was finally approved by Senate that the convention should be ratified. So I call upon all the other ASEAN states, Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, Myanmar, and all others to also join the Philippines and lead the world as the region that supports domestic workers, calling for decent work for domestic workers, rectify ILO C-189.